Warm blessings to you all as we begin this summer. This is Sister Carol. At our chapter almost a year ago, we committed as a congregation to collaborate in mission as we respond to the cry of earth and the cry of humanity. As St. John says of love, it is an old commandment and a new commandment. Responding to the cry of the earth and the cry of humanity is a mission grounded in our charism, a lifelong commitment for each of us, and yet a renewed commitment for our congregation as we discern our role in what Pope Francis calls a generation of restoration, and the United Nations names the decade of the ecosystem. In 2019, the preparation for our pre-chapter conversation, the SOGs, opened with a quote from Pope Francis' encyclical Laudato Si. We are faced not with two separate crises, one environmental and the other social, but rather with one complex crisis, which is both social and environmental. Strategies for a solution demand an integrated approach to combating poverty, restoring dignity to the excluded, and at the same time protecting nature. The encyclical further emphasizes the interconnection. A true ecological approach always becomes a social approach. It must integrate questions of justice in debates on the environment, so as to hear the cry of earth and the cry of the poor. This is what is meant by integral ecology, corresponding to the United Nations 17 Goals for Sustainable Development. Laudato Si has, in fact, become an important text for the global climate movement, strengthening the common witness of faith communities. Upon the 5th anniversary of the encyclical, the Holy Father launched a new ecclesial initiative to promote an integrated approach to the crises of our world. The Church's Committee for Justice, Peace, and the Integrity of Creation, JPIC, is collaborating with the Global Catholic Climate Movement and with the U.S. Catholic Climate Covenant to support Catholic groups as they develop their Laudato Si action plans. The rapid intensification of global warming has given new urgency to our response to the climate crisis. If we fail to break the pace of warming by the year 2030 by reducing greenhouse gas emissions, the damage may be irreversible and accelerating. The Holy Father therefore proposes that Catholics in every sector of the Church publicly express their commitment to move toward integral ecology and develop a 7-year strategic plan for the transition. Our intentionality will itself awaken others to hear the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor, and respond with creative compassion as well. The collective strategy is to gather at the grassroots the critical mass necessary to animate the movement, then leverage that influence to bring about systemic change. At our spring gathering this year, on behalf of the guiding team, I introduced the proposition that our congregation become part of the Vatican's Laudato Si collaborative by making a public commitment toward integral ecology and developing a 7-year plan towards a just and ecologically sustainable way of life. Had the pandemic not broken the momentum of our SOG conversations and abridged our chapter, we would perhaps already have developed such a strategic plan. Poignantly, the past year and a half has brought home the tragic reality of devastating natural disasters, exacerbated by human hubris and the disproportionate impact of COVID and other crises on the poor, especially Black, Indigenous, and people of color, the so-called BIPOC communities. The injustice and violence of racism, the desperation of migrants, and the vulnerability of the poor confronts us on our doorstep. In fidelity to our charism, we do engage in works of justice, mercy, and peace. The Ursuline Call, in its chapters on poverty, community, and prayer, expresses our commitment to integral ecology. Decades of ministry in Appalachia and Peru have made us aware of the cascading impact of environmental degradation. All the more then do powerful patterns of global devastation, exploitation, and violence challenge us to a personal and collective examination of conscience, and invite us to ecological conversion and an integral vision of our common home, in solidarity with the whole Earth community. The Vatican Laudato Si initiative identifies 7 sectors in the Church: individuals and families, educational institutions, healthcare facilities, parishes and dioceses, religious congregations, organizations, and the economy. Since religious congregations are represented in each sector, we have a special opportunity to raise awareness and lead by example. Each congregation is encouraged to respond according to its own charism, mission, and communal context, just as each person must consider her way of life within her own situation and giftedness. The diversity of this groundswell corresponds to the beauty of creation's own splendid array, united in the gift of life. The International Union of Superiors General, the UISG, and the U.S. Leadership Council of Women Religious, LCWR, have endorsed the Holy See's proposal and established a special website, Sowing Hope for the Planet, to support religious congregations in their discernment, planning, and action as we address the demands of justice, peace, and the integrity of creation. Over the past months, the working group has offered webinars providing examples from congregations which are already undertaking ecological conversion, and offering practical guidance and support for those still overwhelmed by the science, vocabulary, and immensity of the task. Years ago, Teresa Ledakowska noted that charism implies mission. It is a gift to be shared with others. Pope Francis' integral approach is reflected in the 7 Laudato Si goals: response to the cry of earth, response to the cry of poor, ecological economics, simple lifestyle, ecological education, ecological spirituality, and community engagement and participatory action. Surprisingly, the Pope, in addressing Laudato Si circles, focused on contemplation and compassion. Key presentations during Laudato Si week were by Pax Christi on nonviolence, and Sowing Hope for the Planet, on behalf of religious communities, inaugurated its prayer network on the Global Catholic Climate Movement website. As I walked around the chapel court one day, the legend on the Ursuline coat of arms window caught my attention. It's from the prophet Daniel. Those who instruct the many in justice will shine like the stars. Erudiens ad justitiam means both instructing and leading to justice. It implies both from and to. Angela says, if according to times and circumstances, the need arises to do something new, to make a change, do it prudently and with consultation. This year's Laudato Si celebration took its theme from the introduction to the encyclical. For we know that things can change. Times and circumstances bespeak the urgency of change. Our own chapter Grace invites us to consider our present policies and our potential to collaborate, maximizing our capacity and mission, to have an impact in responding to the cry of earth and cry of humanity. What is it time to change? The Cry of Earth and Cry of Humanity guiding team continues to engage through the Social Concerns Committee on a broad range of issues. However, this particular Laudato Si opportunity to publicly participate with other religious congregations and sectors of the Church providentially coincides with our chapter objective, both in its focus and as a form of collaboration. LCWR emphasizes the prophetic dimension of religious congregations' participation in the initiative. Our guiding team has begun drafting a statement which would inaugurate the commitment and subsequently involve developing a 7-year strategic plan. The official Laudato Si sign-on is during the season of creation beginning in September and culminating on the Feast of St. Francis, October 4th. In the next 2 months, the guiding team will send out further explanation of the proposed Laudato Si commitment. During our community days, the congregation will have the opportunity to consider and decide whether to participate in the Vatican's Global Collaborative. In mid-July, we hope to have an informal workshop on approaches to the Laudato Si goals, with opportunity for input, conversation, and exploration of practical approaches, backyard and beyond, to the ecological aspects of our chapter resolution concerning the cry of earth and cry of humanity. Loretto's sister Elaine Prevalent noted that religio, religion, means reconnecting. Our directory reminds us that teaching Christian living exemplifies that working for justice is essential to the gospel. Justice is restorative. It restores peace, dignity, hope, beauty, freedom, and community. Let us be the generation of restoration, our vocation and our world call us to be.